Hi, and welcome to another episode of She Leads Biotech, the podcast where we celebrate the achievements of women in the life sciences. My guest today began her career as a pharmacist and oncology specialist before moving into biotech and big pharma, where she built medical teams, worked across research and discovery, and saw firsthand the gap between technical expertise and true leadership capability. Rather than accept that gap, she created leadership training programs inside a major pharmaceutical organization, helping scientists learn how to lead cross-functional teams, communicate with impact, and drive better, smarter decisions. She's since taken that work a stage further, launching her own firm to help senior scientists, executives, and biotech leaders grow their leadership presence, increase their influence, and step confidently into strategic roles within their organizations. Her focus is clear: helping technical experts become visible, trusted decision makers who shape outcomes, influence at the highest levels, and lead beyond the bench. So to tell us more about her work, please welcome the founder and CEO of Joanna Ghayad Coaching, Joanna Ghayad. Joanna, hi.
Hi, Sharon. It's so wonderful to be with you today.
Oh, bless you. Listen, thank you so much for joining us. I know how busy you are, so it's really good of you to take time out of your day. And we're in the same time zone, right? Where are you based?
I am in New Jersey, just outside of
Oh,
Philadelphia.
okay. So just over the border, one state over.
Yeah.
Well, listen, it's lovely to talk to you, and I'm really excited to talk about your story. Since we met briefly at Advanced Therapies Week, I know that there was a lot that we could talk about. So I'm glad that we can spend some time chatting about your career to date. But the one question I was, where did it start for you? Some science, something you were always interested in? Did it find you? Did you find it? How did you? How,
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love this question because science is something that was a big part of my family because my parents were immigrants and science and math were always really extremely important in our family. My father was a physician, and my mom actually went to business school. And she actually is the one who really encouraged me to become a pharmacist because I loved science, I loved math. I was like the big chemistry whiz at school. And so she just really encouraged me to go into pharmacy. And I actually didn't want to because I was afraid that I would end up being that person that everybody kind of envisions what a pharmacist does is sitting behind the counter counting pills. And they really actually do so much more than that. And so I'm so grateful to her for really encouraging me to do that. And she's actually the one who motivated me in the first place. And
okay.
since then, I've just learned all the wonderful things that you can do with science and in pharmacy as a whole.
Okay. So you finished your education, and what was the sort of first step on your career journey?
Yeah, I took it upon myself to really take advantage of my time in pharmacy school to learn all the different aspects that I could take in terms of a career path. So I learned what it was like to work in the hospital. I learned what it was like to work in industry. I learned what it was like to work behind the counter at a CVS or something like that. And so I took that time really to explore and learn. And I'm so glad that I did because what I ended up doing after I graduated was to do actually a residency. And what that means is I learned and trained to be an oncology pharmacist. So I specifically trained to work with cancer patients at the bedside, making decisions with physicians, with the care team, helping support the nurses, and helping patients through their cancer journeys because it's a very vulnerable time for patients. And everybody on the care team really has a role to play, the pharmacist, the physician, the nurses, the social workers. And so that was really my first foray into what clinical pharmacy was like. And I continued down that path for a while before I decided I wanted to try something different and go into biotech and to really try out what pharma would be like. So that's kind of where I've spent the last 15 years of my career in healthcare. in clinical pharmacy, and then also in a small biotech, building up an MSL team, a medical science liaison team. And then I spent the last 8 years of my career in big pharma in a number of different roles that I'm happy to kind of talk about as we go along.
Okay. And what were the challenges that you faced going through the early part of your career?
I would say in the beginning, I struggled a lot as an early clinical pharmacist in terms of like establishing credibility with physicians, because my first job as as an oncology clinical pharmacist was to actually establish a new role as an oncology pharmacist working with the care team in a community hospital. And I was used to working in academia where it was already established. So at my time and 15 years ago, there were some hospitals that still didn't have pharmacists to actually help them in the care team. So my role was to help be at the bedside, helping make decisions about care, about dosages and things like that. And just kind of establishing that trust and credibility with the care team was really, really important. I'd say where I really ran into challenges is when when I actually decided to transition into biotech, like learning the ropes of moving from academia into or healthcare, even just into a pharmaceutical role, is a big transition, because there's a lot of compliance, there's a lot of regulations, there's a lot of things that people don't really share with you when you're on the other side of things. I only experienced it from the side of the healthcare provider side, where like I would have people come and visit, but there's a lot of compliance and there's a big learning curve in that regard with regards to like transitioning into the industry. And then when I was in big pharma, that was an even bigger transition, because in biotech, everybody knows you kind of wear a lot of different hats. So when I was there, I was the MSL, I was setting the strategy. I was doing a lot of different things, created our first medical affairs board, advisory board there. And then when I moved into big pharma, it was like small fish in big pond once again. Or big ocean, really. And kind of learning the ropes of like everybody kind of has their own role, and figuring out what each person's role is and what my role is in relation to everyone else's role. But then also like understanding the different dynamics and navigating the different dynamics within a large pharmaceutical organization. I think a lot of people appreciate the fact that there can be a lot of red tape that also exists in academia, but I was more shielded from it in the roles I was in there. But I would say in big pharma, there's a lot more navigating and ensuring that you're getting visibility for the different types of work that you're doing, getting buy-in for the work that you're doing, and ensuring that you continue to get resource. And I'd say the biggest place that happened was when I transitioned into the research and discovery space, where it was always about like making trade-offs with resources and portfolio decisions, and deciding which early drug discovery programs to really invest in and go for versus the ones that we needed to make decisions to stop. Those were different processes to follow. So it was quite challenging at the time when I moved into that role. And it was a whole new space too. I'm a pharmacist, so I grew up on the commercialization side. After the clinical trials are complete, I understand what it takes to run a clinical trial. Research was a completely new world for me. So I was really transferring my negotiation skills, my governance skills, my process skills, all the strategy and operations that I learned in earlier parts of my career, and translating that to learning then the research space and everything that goes into target ideation all the way through lead optimization, IND filing, and then actually getting it to the phase 1 first in human clinical trial. So that was a huge learning curve for me.
And what insight did being involved in all these departments, all of the things that you were doing, what insight did that give you into the people working in the space and what was going on with them?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Great question. In terms of, so when I moved over to the research and discovery space, I learned just how much of a gap there was in terms of like people being able to lead these actual programs. So when you have a research program that you're really committing to at a large organization, there's a number of different functions that are part of ensuring that program continues to progress. It's very different in a smaller company where, you're wearing small hats, but in a large company, there's a lot of different people who are responsible and touch that program. And so the people who were responsible for leading those cross-functional teams, really it became apparent that many of them hadn't gotten the leadership training to be able to actually lead a cross-functional team, to gain buy-in from a group of people who maybe didn't fully understand what each other's role and experience like was part of. And so we really, that was the first gap that I recognized and really started to create a leadership training around that, that now actually is in its fifth year at the company that I was at, because there was such great feedback about it. There was great results that came out of it. And so that's where we really focused our time in developing leaders there.
So you started to, this is a BMS, right?
It is,
Yeah.
yes.
So you started to um, identify areas within leaders within teams. One of the things I find with big pharma is the boxes. That's your box, and you're in it, and you know
Yep.
exactly where the diameters are of the box, and but you don't step out of it. And
Mhm.
equally, what I've learned through my time recruiting in the space is that people don't actually get to experience the next box
Mhm.
until they're in it, which invariably sometimes can be a bit late, particularly on a leadership perspective and going from being an operator into leading other teams. So this was kind of pretty astute for you to be sitting there thinking, I'm seeing where these things are crossing and the challenges that they're bringing for the individuals involved. Would that be about right?
Would say so. I mean, so there's a couple of things that were happening also at the time that if I'll share a little bit more detail and color is that we as a company had integrated with a couple of other organizations, and we keep seeing, M&As happening, and there's a lot that comes with that, what like if from a practicality and operations standpoint. And so when you have all these different companies coming together under one roof and not everybody has the same way of doing things from before, and you're trying to kind of bring everybody together to operate and move these programs forward, you kind of have to create a space that everybody's kind of operating from the same place. So that was one. But the other piece is that everybody was also coming from different baseline levels of leadership training of like some people were more experienced in drug discovery and development, other people were much earlier and newer to the space. And so it was creating this like there was not an even playing field, and we needed to really bring everybody up to speed to become these like stronger leaders. So that, because what we were seeing is our programs were like we were seeing teams that weren't able to make decisions, weren't able to make the best decisions for their program in terms of the types of studies that they needed to do, choosing more of the critical activities that needed to be done to advance a program that would enable a decision versus doing nice to have activities, and then really just getting everybody around a common goal. Like people underestimate how important that is to be able to influence a big group of people who come from different backgrounds, different parts of the organization, and ensuring that you're all on the same page about what it is that you're trying to achieve with a discovery program, where this belongs in terms of clinical practice, and how do we make sure that we have the early data that's going to help support that and translate that into patients so that we can really move once we get it into the clinic.
Yeah, you start moving the needle ahead. What do you find, obviously, in all of your experience going through this, what do you find that most organizations and scientists misunderstand about leadership and influence in the life sciences?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I don't know if it's a misunderstanding as much as I think people agree, because I talk to a lot of people about this topic, and I think a lot of people agree that it is really important for us to train and teach scientists to be able to communicate, to be able to influence, to be able to communicate science in a way that people can understand the business impact, the patient impact, the overall value of what science is. I heard this, I'm sure you heard this at Advanced Therapies. Like I heard it so many times that we as a scientific community need to be able to communicate science better so that more people can understand it. And everybody that I've spoken to agrees with that. It's a matter of actually putting our money where our mouth is and investing in actually being able to teach and train scientists to do that. And that's where I think there's a gap, is like we all know what the problem is. We are calling it out. We just have to actually take the time, put the resource to it, to actually train people to do this work. Because a big part of communication is the ability to influence, and then is also then being able to get a group and lead them around a common goal. So
But isn't the challenge with that the dealing with the left hand and a right hand brain? I mean, you know, I'm a theatre person and I've done performing and I consider myself to be pretty creative at times. But you ask me to put a science thing or a mathematical thing to get anything that uses that side of the brain, I'm like, no, that's not going to happen. Isn't it just kind of the way it is? If somebody is very left-brained, in that they're very analytical and can do wonderful things with science that my brain can't even begin to understand, that there's always going to be that challenge in working with people and understanding that people need to be developed and how to lead teams. What have you found as a challenge in the work that you're doing now? Or have you not? Have I got that totally wrong?
no. So I'm actually glad you're bringing that up, Sharon, because I think that's where we also put people into boxes, is
Yep.
that we kind of say, okay, you're a scientist, and so we're just going to put you in the scientist box, and we're not going to bother to try to teach you, try to help you build those skills, when there are a lot of skills that just take time and energy and practice to actually learn, and them to actually become muscle memory, and then actually become part of your day to day. And the other thing that I noticed, as I have been doing more and more of this executive coaching with different scientists and working with them from a leadership perspective, is that they're just as creative as they are analytical. There are so many scientists who are also artists or appreciate art, because there's an element of drug discovery and research that requires significant creativity and significant critical thinking. It's just a different way of applying that creativity, of figuring out how a drug is going to impact the body, or how a technology is going to impact society. Like, it's just a different way of applying our creativity and our critical and analytical thinking skills. Because I visited one of the companies here in Philadelphia recently, and there was all this beautiful artwork on the wall, and they were telling me how, like, a lot of it's from their scientists. Like, they are also artists, because there is an element of creativity that comes with drug development and science as well. And there's another, it's funny, I'm going to bring this up because it's about my son, and I just realized this. He loves science and math. He's so good at both of them. He loves STEM activities, and he's only in first grade, but he loves Legos. And Lego was so smart. They started to create boxes that are of artwork, like the Wave of Kanagawa, the Starry Night from Van Gogh. And he's actually done those two Lego sets, and as a first grader, because he loves science and he appreciates art. And my daughter is the same way. So anyway, I'm kind of getting off tangent, but I'm bringing it back to the fact that, like, I think that's a misconception and a myth that scientists aren't creative or can't learn the human element of, like, working with people, because we absolutely can. It's just a matter of putting it front and center, taking the time to actually practice, which is what I do with my clients when I coach them, but also when I do what I do with organizations. Like, that is exactly how we designed the leadership training when we created it, in that it's not just about, like, speaking, like, to you and lecturing you. It's about actually the application of the concepts and practicing them in real time and breaking out and experimenting and discovering. And I think the reason that we don't do that is because we get scared. We're like, we don't want to mess up. As scientists, we are perfectionists. We are taught to, like, we have to have the right answer. We have to have it right. We have to have the data to support it. And when you're learning something new, it's expected that you're going to mess up. Like, it's going to take a couple of times to learn it. It's just like riding a bike. It's just like any other skill that you had to learn. It's kind of what I talk about with my clients, is like, when you're a 2-year-old, like, you don't know how to walk yet. You're just learning it. And over time, you practice it, you fall. I think we get a little bit more fearful of the fall as we get older, and we have to practice that and just go through that.
So there is hope for me to be able to put together a theoretical string system or something in terms of science, then.
I
It's
think
just a
so.
matter of training my brain to go that way.
I think so. I think it's possible.
Would like to put a disclaimer out there to all my audience who are suddenly thinking, well, thanks a lot, Sharon. Are you just saying that we can't do this because we're automatically geared? I'm not suggesting that at all. It's purely come from personal experience. I know I'm a right-sided person, brain-wise, and the left side doesn't work for me. With somebody like you, Joanna, obviously that is something that can be trained. So talk to me about who you typically work with. Who are your clients? Because you've now, maybe let's just back up a bit. You left big pharma and you have created this company and the. Tell me what it is. It's much better coming
Yeah,
from your mouth than mine.
sure, sure. So like I said, I've been in the industry for 15 years, from healthcare to academia to biotech and big pharma. And the thing that I recognized over the course of those 15 years is that what I loved the most and what I get the most joy out of was when I was actually training, mentoring, and really developing the next generation of leaders. And when I saw how big of a gap there was in terms of leadership training and development in the space that I was in the research space, that's when I really decided that it was time to like make a change, and I decided to go out on my own. I started my own company. It's primarily do executive coaching, but I also do work with organizations because that's how it all started in terms of leadership development or workshops from communication, risk assessment and mitigation planning, all the things that kind of go along with leading a team and ensuring that they are high functioning and working together. And it's not just research teams, it's teams in general that are coming together. You're building team identity. You're growing together as a team. I do a lot of that work with organizations. And so it's just a matter of that. But I would say the primary people that I work with on a regular basis are people who are in the life sciences space, who are either at an executive level or higher, founders, CEOs, CSOs, anybody at the VP level who are newly in those roles and are trying to get themselves established, essentially establishing themselves in their own leadership identity, establishing their teams and how to lead their teams, the type of organization and leader that they want to be, and really getting themselves out of the weeds of the everyday day-to-day execution and really into the strategy, the vision, the mission, and ultimately wanting to be seen less as a technical expert and more as a strategic partner, advisor, and leader. That's typically what people come to me for.
And would you say that those are the key areas that you focus in on? I mean, I know, again, I've been to a number of meetings recently where there's been this talk of that transition from operator into leader, and the danger as a new leader is to keep being an operator and you just keep want to do the job,
Yeah.
which then involves you micromanaging people because you don't know any other way
Yeah.
to do that and cause it. Are those traditionally the challenges that people are having when they come to you? And what tends to be the trigger that makes people realize, whoa, I need some help with this? Where does that come from?
Yeah, great question. And I have two kind of answers for this. The first, to answer your question directly, is the trigger is typically like that overwhelm, that feeling of like, okay, I need to get out of the weeds. Like I've worked to be here. We're always constantly striving for the next thing, the next thing. And it's like when we finally get there, it's like, okay, how do I actually do this job? Like how do I actually be this thing? Not this thing, but this person. And a lot of that is figuring out what you need to let go of and figuring out what it is that you really need to focus your attention on, but also deciding the kind of leader that you really want to be. I find that people, when they get to that level, they recognize they have all this decision making authority. They have the ability to really have influence decisions, and they're just trying to figure out how to navigate all of that because it's a lot all at once. So And really because they want to be seen less as a technical expert at the table and more as a strategic advisor. That is the number one thing that people say to me when they come to me. And that's why I work primarily with scientists, because they tend to get boxed into that you're the technical expert. The other piece, though, that's my philosophy and mission is actually to catch people before they get to that level. So the biggest gap of underdeveloped people are in that associate director, and like principal scientist role. We always focus on early career people. We always focus on the executive suite, but like the people that need the most support are the ones that are trying to make that transition into the executive suite. And also because that's a prime time to create your leadership identity of like, how do I actually want to be as a leader? And how do I bring that to the executive suite? And how do I potentially shift how we do things? Because I think that's what a lot of people are craving, is maybe a leadership in the executive suite that looks a little bit different, that acts a little bit different, that prioritizes things a little bit differently. And so being able to kind of get grounded in that earlier, in that middle of your mid area, and bringing that to the executive suite and still owning it, like not losing it when you get there.
If we have people listening in now thinking this really resonates with me, associate director, there's places for me to go, but I know I've got stuff to learn. If they were to come to you, what would they expect? What should they expect?
Yeah. So I would say the people who've come to me that have had really wonderful results are people who've worked with me privately. And I usually work with people at least for 3 months because it takes time for that transformation. And some of the best results that I've seen are people getting promoted into roles that they've been striving for. So I've had people move from project management to portfolio management. I've had people who've been elevated from an executive director into a CSO role. And I've had people who are just owning the room anymore. Like they're not masking themselves in terms of editing themselves in spaces. And because of that, it's magnetizing opportunities to them. So I had just one conversation with someone who came to me and was, sharing a lot about where they've been in terms of their journey after a layoff. And we talked through a lot of different things about owning who they are, what they bring to the table, what their uniqueness is. And after that conversation, they had 4 amazing interview opportunities come their way because of just the way that they changed how they showed up, who they believed they were, who they are. That's a big part of this, is how we view ourselves and how we show up in rooms, but then also the tangible things of like communication, how do you speak the business, and not just the science. How do you make decisions? How do you stand and be strong in the decisions that you're making? So there's a lot of work that goes into it, but those are some of the main results or biggest results I would see have happened with some of the people that have come to me. And they've just skyrocketed from there.
So, what advice would you give scientists who want to grow into leadership roles or increase their influence in their organization? Where should they start?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is, I know everybody says this and I know it's really cliche, but it is actually to take control of your career. I think that we tend to wait for, and I see this a lot, we wait for our managers to give us visibility. We wait for the right time. We think we're not at the right level, that we can't like speak up or show up or be a certain way in meetings. There are going to be people that are going to continuously tell you, because I hear it all the time in the scientific community, like, who do you think you are speaking up? You're a bench scientist, or you're at a manager level or a early scientist level. We tend to put each other down, and like we need to lift each other up. And so if somebody is trying to actually like share an idea or be innovative, like we need to create the space for that, and we need to make sure that it's okay so that people feel like they can do that. So taking ownership of your career, speaking up, being visible, probably the One tangible tip I will give is making sure that you have a regular meeting with your boss's boss, because that's where you really can make sure that you're getting visibility above just your direct manager. I think that's a really important practice for people to think about and make sure that they're having.
How do they do that? I'm really intrigued to know how they do that because I don't know. I think it might be a British thing that we're always so you don't get involved with your boss's boss. You don't reach them unless you go through me to get. You're not speaking to my boss unless I tell you to do so. So how does somebody do that without risking the wrath of the boss they've got and never getting the opportunity to be part of that? Because
Yeah,
it's a risky step, right?
it can be, but I think if you have it starts with having a good relationship with your direct manager.
Okay.
I mean, all of this is about building trust. Like if you ever want to get anywhere in your career, people have to trust you. They have to trust your judgment. They have to trust that they can believe what you're going to do in the future. If you want them to see you as somebody who can operate at the next level, then they need to trust that you're making good decisions, even if you're not at a certain level, as if you were in that level. Because I think you had said something earlier, Sharon, of like we tend not to act at the next level until we get
Get
there.
them.
When I think it's changing. I think that we actually have to show that we can operate at the next level so that we can be promoted to the next level. And so having a good relationship with your direct manager and being transparent with the fact that, I have this thing that I think is really important that I'd like to, ask them about, or I'd like to have a conversation with them about their career, and just being honest about it. It doesn't have to be a regular check-in, but if you want to have an initial just kind of conversation with your higher level leadership, like that should be okay. And that's another thing, Sharon, of like why I believe the culture needs to change a little bit is like we have to be open to letting people have access to other people. I think there's a lot of gatekeeping that happens. And I know I'm talking in idealistic terms, but I've lived in the real world and it's not as easy. But I think just having a good, honest relationship and being transparent with your manager about your intentions and what you want to talk to their one over about, or maybe having a conversation, the three of you together, like even just having access to them in that way is a great opportunity to be able to just share what you're working on, that type of thing.
I just want to be a little bit controversial here.
Okay, that's okay.
Just a tiny bit. And maybe it isn't. And you may say to me, no, Sharon, you're completely off pat. But I think back through my own career and people that I've worked with the years. What impact does gender have on genuinely being able to get those different accesses? If I'm a guy, my boss is a guy, my boss's boss is a guy, the chances are the three of us are either going to be on the golf course, in the pub, somewhere, and that access is simple and easy and blah blah blah. I'm a woman and my boss is a man and my boss's boss is a man. Or let's take it the other way round. I'm a man, my boss is a woman and my boss's boss is a woman. Is there a difference? Is that going to have an impact? What's the reality of that based on gender?
Yeah, so the reality based on gender is that happens, right? Like that, what you just described is going to happen. And all we can control is how we handle it and how we continue to advocate for ourselves.
Okay.
So if you're seeing, and this is one of the things that this is one of the things that I teach in my one of the course, the 4-week accelerator that I run, the resonance effect, is really mapping power in an organization and understanding who's actually, there's people that are going to be the ones who ultimately own the decision, but there's also people who are going to influence those people. There's also people who are going to influence you or support you or try to block you. I've had that happen to me. I've been totally blocked in an organization from moving on because of what somebody was trying to protect. And so it's a matter of understanding the other dynamics that are ongoing within your organization, and just as a whole, so that yeah, so that I mean it's a little bit playing the game, but it's like so that you can also decide for yourself how you want to be. Like
Right.
if this is the place, like is this the place for you or is it not the place for you? One or two, like, I can see where the power is and I'm going to work through understanding who I need to influence and how to influence them and that type of thing. And that's a big part of what I I teach people in that course and it was so eye-opening for the first cohort that went through it. They were just like, this is amazing. And I'm realizing where I fit into all of those power dynamics too.
Right. Yeah.
So there is an element of like the reality, but what I think I want to drive home is what I want people to start thinking about differently is that we don't want to just call it men and women. At the end of the day, we want us to all be people and people supporting people. I know there's differences in how men operate and women operate, but I think there's also differences in how women operate with other women and men operate with other men. So like,
Yep.
again, it's another box that I think we're putting people into. I, I don't think is always fair.
No, and I completely agree with you. I mean, because, it could be somebody's blocking you because they're just a bad boss. It doesn't matter what sex they are, they're just a bad boss. And
Mm-hmm.
those are always going to happen. So I think what it full circle comes back to something you said earlier about somebody being their true selves. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where I know it's used a lot, but I'm a big fan of authenticity. And, no matter what, I am going to be me. This
Mm-hmm.
is right or wrong, I'm authentically me. And I think as long as you show up as authentically you, it's going to work out somewhere along the line. It's that the
Mm-hmm.
challenge comes if you're trying to be something that you're not
Yeah.
to fit in to somebody else's agenda. Would
Yeah.
that be about right?
Yeah, I absolutely. I think it's authentically you in your beliefs, grounded in your beliefs and your values. You know this, I know you do. You probably coach a lot of people on this, but like, what do you truly believe in? What do you really stand for? And when you can show up as that person authentically, that's who you're going to draw to you. And
Yep.
I think the fear that we have is that we're going to repel not everybody's going to like us because we are being our authentic selves. And I think that's actually the point.
Yep. Absolutely.
I don't think we want everybody to like us
Yep.
because the people that don't magnetize to you, that don't want to be with you or near you or part of your world, like you probably don't want them part of your world either.
That's also the difference between like and respect. I mean, I remember
Mhm.
telling people, when I first took over teams of people, was like, listen, I'm a bit of an acquired taste, and you may not like me, and that's fine. But what I'm going to strive for is your respect. And as long as you respect me, because I've earned it, not
Yeah,
because I've demanded it, I
yeah,
can live with that.
yeah,
With work, in a work situation, if
yeah,
somebody doesn't like me, then that's fine. But first of all, know me before you don't like me, because otherwise it's a bit unfair. But also, if I have your respect, then I can live with that.
yeah. It's
That would
exactly
be
it.
about fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
exactly it. What can you live with? What can others live with about you?
So, again, I'm very conscious of your time, and I appreciate what the time you've given me today. So, but if there's people listening, and they want to learn more about what you do, I mean, we've just covered a little slither of it here. Where should they start? How do they reach you?
Yeah, great. Happy to share. So, one of the easiest ways to get in touch with me is through LinkedIn. I'm very active there. I post a lot. So, if you're following me, thank you for following. If you're not yet, please follow me. And then message me directly if you have questions about today and want to talk more. I'm also going to share with you, Sharon, anybody who's listening today that would like a complimentary 20-minute session with me. I'm going to offer that as a link in your podcast that people
Okay.
can click on, and they can just make comment that they found me through you. So happy to offer a 20-minute complimentary session for folks. And then the third is, if you aren't following me already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, the Revolutionary STEMist. It's where I'm having a lot of these conversations around leadership in science and really telling the stories of people who are sponsoring others who don't look like them, and also what great leadership in science can look like, and really interviewing those folks. So if you're
Fantastic.
interested in those topics, please follow and subscribe to my YouTube channel.
Excellent. And we'll put all the links into the introduction that when we promote the show, so that you'll get that from there. Joanna, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sharon.
It's been great speaking to you. And I look forward to getting the call from you to say how people are getting on with your courses and what they're doing. And hopefully we can maybe find some way that we can work together in the future to continue to support both companies and job seekers alike.
I would love that. Thank you so much for having me today. This was so much fun, and you
Pleasure.
were fantastic. So,
No, thank you. Once we shut off, you can go, and I hate her. It's fine. Enjoy the rest of your day. It's been a great pleasure speaking to you.
same to you. Thanks,
Take
Sharon.
care. Bye-bye. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for joining me for this episode of She Leads Biotech. If today's story inspired you, subscribe, follow, and comment. Because when one woman's voice is heard, many more find theirs. Until next time, stay curious, stay courageous, and keep leading.